Good morning. It's Sunday service again. It's 7:30 on a Sunday morning in Canada. It's October 28th, approximately. I have a look today. The sound you hear is rain. And I'm in Vancouver, which is one of the rainiest cities in the world. I once didn't buy a beautiful imported French car because the windshield wipers were noisy. The salesman was quite put out, and I said, I'm not buying a car with windshield wipers that slam and bang in the rainiest city in the world. These rains are approximately 2 months late, and one would use that information and say, ooh, global warming. 50 years ago or more, maybe 60 years ago, we had blazing sunshine till November 15th, and everyone was saying it's the end of the world as we know it. And then on the 16th, it rained like this, and it rained for 6 months like it usually does. So on the way to today's lecture, I was looking at the percentage of nitrogen in the atmosphere here, and it's 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen. And the last 90 days we've had world government saying that, oh, the nitrogen in the fertilizer is going to end the world as we know it, and cow parts and cow burps. But if 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen, I don't think cow parts are going to do it. What can be doing it is capped oil wells. Capped oil wells leak methane. And I was looking down that avenue, and there's a couple that's following the data on that. And one state, I think it was Illinois, there were 6,600 capped oil wells. And they're all over the place. A lot of them are on private land, and they went there with a gas sniffer and found they were all different. Some of them were undetectable, some of them were way below the legal limit, some of them were ridiculous. The cost of sealing a well like that, I think it was $120,000 to dump cement down there. So 120,000 times 6,600 is a lot of money, which the oil companies are loath to spend to do the ethical thing. And ethics is the problem with the world. It's one of the problems. I once had a view from higher consciousness of the United States of America, and the carpet or tapestry of unethical behavior would be impossible to undo unless you were literally a god. So a single person can't do that. I was told that the only way that could be undone was to start a religion and get everybody into religion, and then it could be forced on people. But I don't want people chopping off other people's heads in my name. Isn't that the wrong way to go? Now, I've been curious, George, since I was a kid. I was a science kid. I read many books per week. I had a chemistry set. I had binoculars. I was watching sunspots in 1965. And then the chemtrails came and obscured my vision of the sunspots. No, they don't teach higher consciousness in schools or universities. That's taught in schools, and there are three kinds of schools. There's religious schools, which is the way of emotion, trying to break through to higher consciousness. Hopefully, with higher consciousness, we could solve the ethical problems on the world. There's the Pekir schools, which is the way of getting away from your mental garbage by control of the body, torturing the body, gain some mental discipline. And the way of the yogi, which is the way of knowledge. And there is a fourth way school, which is the best of the methods of the other three schools without the unnecessary stuff. But the problem with those three ways is the yogi knows everything but can't do anything because he can't control his body and emotions. The religious way, one has control over one's emotions, but one can't control the body and has not enough of the right kind of mental discipline. And the Fakir has complete control over himself and his body, but he doesn't know anything and can't get emotionally motivated to do something with it. So I went to a fourth way school, and one of the things they teach there is on the road to higher consciousness. They use the analogy of a spoked wheel, like a wagon wheel from the pioneer days in the United States, with many spokes. And every school is a different spoke leading towards the hub. And the closer you get to the hub, you begin to see people on other ways traveling in the same direction. And that's what today will be about. I just received some information I got somewhere between 2010 and 2014 by Robert Morningsky. It's a 2.5-hour lecture that explains the politics in this quadrant of this galaxy, which includes the reptilians, the Shetu or the Greys, and a wolf-like creature which has just come to the fore. In my knowledge, is maybe why we're starting to see not more Bigfoot sightings, but sightings of some kind of huge creature that kind of looks like a big dog. Be that as it may. If you watched Robert Morningsky's presentation, it's all laid out. He's spent 30 years researching this and got a university degree with the paper he wrote on it because it was irrefutable. And he went all the way back to ancient Sumeria and beyond in Sitchen's work. Definitions of words in different languages follow the etymology of words through thousands of years, showing that the ancient stories here and what we have in present time is the same thing. Also, another school, fourth way school, Peter Ouspensky, has a story which I've read on my channel. It's called Talks with the Devil. And in that, the devil's explaining what happened in the Garden of Eden, and he talks about the children of Adam and Eve, the children of the animals. And for the last 3 weeks, I've been thinking, who are the children of the animals? Sounds like a dangerous place to stick your toe. So Robert Morningsky talks about the Anunnaki manipulating human DNA and A in the Middle East and Africa. And according to the story, he says he uncovered the Anunnaki were very carefully manipulating the DNA pairings of their slave species to get just a certain kind of human being who was just smart enough to take orders, but not conscious enough to rebel against the situation. And appended to this is there is a story in the Bible that Adam had an earlier wife than Eve, and she was kicked out of the Garden of Eden because she wouldn't behave. She wouldn't take orders, she wouldn't listen, she wouldn't be subservient. So they were having problems with the original model. Like, that's where Lilith came from, and the Garden of Eden group was this very carefully cultured level of mankind that was smart enough to take directions to run machinery and stuff, but not so smart that it would rebel. And the snake in the Garden of Eden was a geneticist, according to his story, a female, who told the Adam and Eve group that it would be okay for them to have sex and procreate on their own without being paired up by the lab. And this was done, and proliferation eventually caused a problem with the overlords. And there were so many of these unregulated children that it became a big problem. And this is probably the group that the Bible says was drowned by the big flood. Trying to get rid of these people. The stories vary, but they were wild and running around the jungle and having sex at night. Probably eating magic mushrooms. And the gods were jealous of them having so much fun. They were supposed to be working in the mines. Anyway, this is the reason for kicking Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. They were hard to tell who was who, and the lab people, the lab pairings were to produce a willing or dumbed down slave. And I think that the modern version of this is the Karens, who are happy in their slavery and see those who want to rebel against us as crazy people. And approximately right now, humanity is split between the children of the animals and the children of Adam and Eve. The children of the animals are not able to create much. They're great at copying. And the children of Adam and Eve are able to create endlessly. But the children of the animals are responsible for the breaking and destruction of all the products of the children of Adam and Eve. And these days we call it war. Now, behind this is the overlords are still here. And for them, Earth is a business. And I think the reason for the alien abductions is the Shetu or the Greys are doing their original job, which is to get just the right pairings to produce more of the not too bright slave class. And I think they're taking eggs and sperm from these people and growing test tube babies in the lab, and I think they're being sold off-world as a product. Ron Hubbard wrote a series of books, I think it's 10 novels, called Mission Earth or Planet Earth or something. And the front cover used to have a reptilian claw holding on to Planet Earth. Well, it's no longer a reptilian claw, it's a metal glove. But in there, part of the story is the off-world overlords, which are human beings in this case, are taking things off the planet like heroin doesn't grow on any other planet, opium, cocaine, the good liquors, and who knows what else. And these were being taken out of a facility in Turkey, which is an emptied out volcano. So if the 50% of the population is the children of Adam and Eve and are capable of hearing these words and understanding it, if they knew this was going on, they'd probably do something about it. So it's best to keep it hidden, hence the secret societies who are working for the off-world, for whom this planet is a business. And in Robert Morningsky's presentation, he talks about who owns the earth. And it's family of royal blood. The Anunnaki is one of the groups, and they have a family, and that story has been written up quite well by SITCHEN and others. But part of the earliest genetic experiment that produced Adam and Eve was one of the females, royal blood, was one of the top two geneticists couldn't get the beast to be quite smart enough, so she added some of the Anunnaki DNA to it and got the product that she wanted. And what this leads to is I've seen a lot of people saying that we're genetic royalty. And that's why the aliens are here, and I thought that was blah, blah, blah. But it turns out that because this person put Anunnaki DNA into the human genome, or DNA, that the children of Adam are of royal blood and have more seniority than the Shetu, or the worker bees, Anunnaki. And if 51% of it said, we are the rightful owners of the planet, you guys can leave now, they would have to leave. And this has to be stopped at all costs. So who's here? It's not really the reptilians. According to Robert, the reptilian queen finally realized after hundreds of millions of years of fighting wars that nobody wins a war, so she's gone business on the galaxy and has made a deal with the Anunnaki, who are humans, to pay a tithe to have their way with some section of this galaxy. And on the way out along that communication line, they ran into the wolf-like beings. And a deal was also struck with them. Like you're way out on the galactic arm there, so if you want to be in business there, you can pay a tax to the reptilian queen, and there'll be no problems. And that's supposedly what's going on. So for us to become free, we have to become aware of and split off from the children of the animals. There's also a subspecies of human called the psychopath, and we don't know yet if it's nature or nurture, or this is something that one of these three groups above put into the race to keep it upset. There's an Irishman who's the main researcher on this, and as soon as his name pops up, I'll tell you. Sheridan. Thomas Sheridan has written books and used to have, I think, 2,000 videos on YouTube about this. Peter Ouspensky said this human race is the only animal species where the psychopathic part is in charge of it. So I'm chasing this down. Further out than that is the fact / theory, depending on what you're able to see, that this universe is a game concocted for immortal beings. Therefore, it is infinite in size and eternal in length. And the combined creation of gazillions of beings is what has created it and made it solid. And apparently to undo it, you'd have to get every one of the gazillions of beings to take responsible for everything they ever created and dissolving it, which is pretty well impossible. I've seen the drawing. This thing is 105 to the 33rd power in years, or the other figure, something to the 40th power. It's a similar number, and any number with 41 zeros behind it. And this leads to, that's from Captain Bill Robertson. And he says, although it seems to be a mess where we are now, everyone agreed up to this point to keep playing this game, so they must have liked it. And Ron Hubbard said that the point of all his technology was not to destroy everything everywhere, but the playing of a better game. And here on Earth, it's a suppressive scene. The I Ching says a man is born into a preponent system of relationships. And preponent means pre means before, and po, power. Any of those PO words in Latin mean power. So man is born into a system that was in power before he was even born. And then you're a kid, and then you grow up and become a teenager, and then most of the resistance in my lifetime, 60 years ago, Cambridge University students were rebelling because they started to learn about the suppression by governments on the planet. Because beyond high school, you need to educate some people to do the work on higher levels of electronics and government science. So I was told that I'm not powerful enough to do anything about this. And I've been doing this basically all my life since I was 8 years old. In, I think 72, a man handed me a book called A New Model of the Universe by Peter OUSPENSKY. And it was literally that. And that got me started on this path. I read the rest of his books, and he's a student of George GURDJIEFF, so I read all the GURDJIEFF material, and RODNEY COLIN was a student of Peter OUSPENSKY, so I read all his books, and Gil Bryan. And Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda, and I would say to you that if you read that book, he will come to you and help you out. And Dr. Richard Alpert from that. So I went to a lecture by him. I heard him speaking on the radio, and I never heard that tone of voice before. It was complete honesty with no agenda or ego. And he was talking about the yogi schools. So 50 years later, here I am. In the rain, down by the river. Because I just wanted to know when I was young. So somebody giving me this book, I went, now I know. And I've spent 50 years looking through the garbage cans of knowledge for the diamond at the bottom, or the pearl, and I've collected these things into a body of knowledge, which I'm making available here for anyone who just wants to know. The situation here is untenable, and just the last month I found out about something called catastrophism. There are repetitive catastrophes on this planet, and we have one coming up in the next 2 years. And these have been verified by core samples. The pole shift, which I don't believe will flip the planet, but they've got core samples from the Antarctic, which show tropical vegetation, frozen, tropical vegetation, frozen, tropical life forms, frozen, at regular intervals. Also, catastrophism includes the 4 outer gas giants every 10,000 years line up, and all of their gravity and magnetism is pointed at the Earth, and that causes the earthquakes, which, if you notice, earthquakes are coming more and more. We just had one yesterday. Volcanoes are starting to pop off because the crust of the Earth is beginning to wiggle a bit. And if you've ever seen in the desert, they have rock formations that look like that. And these are thousands of feet above sea level. And what these are layers of old seabed. And to lay down a seabed takes millions of years, and then there's a gigantic climate event which changes things. And then at some point, the seabed is now buckled up to a few thousand feet in the air. How did that happen? Means the surface of the earth didn't die. This is supposedly why we have no history, because every 10,000 years the situation gets completely wiped out and we have a ragtag group of survivors with bows and arrows building it all up again. To where we are now, where there's an awareness of this, and they're trying to get a base on the moon and a base on Mars to weather the disaster. That's why there's a face on Mars. That's why there's a replica of the pyramids of Giza on Mars. However, if there are alien overlords, and this is a business, and they've supposedly been here for over 70 million years, that means this has happened 7,000 times. Why are they putting up with that? Why are they here in a place that gets destroyed every 10,000 years? And according Randall Carlson is the man you want to see for catastrophism. Randall Carlson has a podcast and a lot of videos. He's gone to the places where these disasters have happened with geologists, and they've done the scientific work to assure themselves that this stuff actually happened. Yeah, for example, the last ice age, there was an ice cap over North America, all over Canada and halfway down through the States. And it looks like that melted in a few weeks. And all the water ran off and raised the sea level. And what might have caused that is 3 big comet strikes hitting the ice shield and raising the temperature so much that it began to melt. And once that got started, it just went crazy. That's why you see those mesas in the United States, like the one they show in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's a volcanic tube, and it's flat because the glacier ground it off flat, and when it melted, it scooped away anything that was loose earth. That's why if there was ever a civilization there isn't anything left. Now there were some rock hounds who found a stone, and it had what looked like a blaster, a space weapon, like a pistol-like device. It had a cone at the end of it, and this cone is to prevent flashbacks. And in some of the other technology that's alluded to and leaked to us now is one of the main problems with the interstellar motors is flashbacks. Unfortunately, they cut the rock in half before they realized this thing was in there, and then they looked and they saw the tubes, and they x-rayed it, and it looked like a science fiction pistol. I don't know where that is. And when I was 11 to 14 years old, my parents were rock hounds, and a friend of theirs brought a piece of mammoth tusk from Russia. And it wasn't petrified, it was just dead. You could still smell it. And the surface, which is about that thick, had popped off. And inside was a clean bit of bone. It looked like when you strip the bark off a willow tree, and you get a nice smooth. So we cut it with our rock saws, and you could smell that it was a living thing. I made a brochure out of a brooch and put a obsidian center in it. And just lately, the apocalypse means the revelation of knowledge. Armageddon is the big battle in the Middle East, which will be followed a war between Russia and Israel, the United States, China, and the kids from the park, probably. Sorry for the space. It's hard to hold all this stuff at the same time. That's gone for a while. There's another piece of knowledge that fits in here with all of this. Reveal. I might have to stop because it's gone. This camera doesn't have a pause button, so I can't pause and remember. Okay, I'll have to go. I'm going to change my videos all into this channel of thought. For those who just want to know. So, you want to go through search Randall Carlson, works of Peter Ouspensky, George Gurdjieff, Rodney, Colin, Ramdas, Yogananda, and realize in a way there's no hope for the Karens because they were genetically engineered to be the way they are. And you were genetically engineered as a gift by an Anunnaki geneticist. I don't know what to say. At the top of the human DNA spiral, there's a cap. And it looks like an H. And geneticists know it's there. They don't know what it does. They assume there was supposed to be more DNA. And no one has taken that cap off and made a test tube baby to see what would happen. And the large-skulled people in South America finally got the DNA done, and they're from the Middle East. And the Maori in Australia, turns out, are Persians from the Middle East. And they knew that. They just were mad at the white people for slaughtering them. And the other thing, the little round skull that's being touted as the only alien skull. I ran across, there's been 54 or 57 different versions of humanity. And this is a small sized human that's just been discovered. And they have that exact little brown ball of a skull shape. So I think that man got a hold of one of these and created that whole thing. He died of cancer. And the skull has been taken over as a business by a business concern. Lord Pi. So if I can find that video about that race, I'll put it on the site. I think that's what I wanted to say is the apocalypse. One of the definitions is the revelation of knowledge. And right at the end here, just before end times, which will be the four gas giants coming together. I think it's October 24th, 2024. I thought it was 2023, but we're already seeing, there was a big earthquake on the San Andreas. There was a big one in Japan, 6 on the Richter scale. 7 is big disaster, and they're predicting a 9.2 for the west coast, which should destroy everything from Vancouver down to Los Angeles with a tsunami. So I'm part of that. So prepare for natural disasters on a cataclysmic scale. Gail, you need to get away from the seaside. I could turn the camera on. I'm about 50 feet from the river. This river flows into the sea. When the tide comes up here, it raises 4 to 7 feet and goes 50 miles. So if a tsunami came through here, it would go 100 miles up, and the backwash would pull everything, 1.2 million people, into the sea. So couldn't hurt to prep. Eat food, water, gold, guns, ammunition, first aid supplies, 2 or 3 pairs of boots, and don't tell anybody, because if this happens, the grocery stores will empty out in probably one day. When the COVID lockdowns hit here, I went to a grocery store and they had no toilet paper, 1 roll of paper towels, and nothing else. The desserts were on sale for $4 for a cake. Everything had been cleaned out except the Black Forest cake type desserts. And that was just for COVID. So if there is a natural disaster involving planets and earthquakes, there'll be no water coming out of your tap, no electricity, no internet, no phone, maybe some cell phones. Short wave. I have one of those wind-up radios that you can power by winding it up, see if there's any actual help from the government. So the school I went to said they had the 44 beings, higher beings, helping them, and my timer here has gotten to 44 minutes, so I guess that's a sign I should end now.